Imagine waking up to find the solar system isn't what we thought it was. A single comet, not from our sun, not from our stars, has entered our skies, and it's rewriting everything we know about gravity, motion, and cosmic order. Astronomers are stunned because 3I/A/TLAS isn't just passing by, it's changing the rules of space itself. Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Astronomer, a quiet corner of the cosmos where even chaos has its rhythm, and the mysteries of the universe unfold softly, one breath at a time. If these calm journeys through discovery and wonder bring you peace, subscribing to the Sleepy Astronomer helps this small constellation of curiosity grow, so more dreamers can rest beneath the same infinite sky. Tonight, we follow the path of 3I/ATLAS, an interstellar visitor that's defying the laws of motion, forcing scientists to rethink how the solar system breathes, shifts, and evolves. What power could a single comet hold? How could something so small stir such cosmic chaos? And what if it's not the only one? Settle in. The answers are waiting in the dark, and they're far stranger than anyone expected. This is the Sleepy Astronomer. You drift into darkness that is not empty, only vast. It feels like the pause between two breaths, the universe waiting. In that stillness, a single object glides. It is small compared to the great planets, yet immense in its mystery. You sense it long before you see it, a flicker among a sea of patient stars. Astronomers name it 3I/ATLAS, the third known traveller from another star system, but names are human things. To space, it is simply a fragment of memory, carrying the quiet story of elsewhere. You imagine it entering the solar system like a whisper through an open window. No one invites it, it just arrives, as comets always have. But this one is different. Its path is not circular, like the planets, or stretched like the long, looping comets that return after centuries. Its trajectory is open, hyperbolic. It comes once and will never return. It is a guest of one visit, bound by no gravity but its own motion. In your mind's eye, you watch it cross the invisible borders of the sun's realm, the heliosphere, that soft bubble of solar breath that shields the planets. Inside it, the sunlight rains, pushing particles outward in a steady wind. 3I/ATLAS feels that wind and begins to change. Ice trapped for billions of years starts to breathe out vapor, forming a faint tail, the beginning of visibility. Somewhere on Earth, astronomers notice. They are the quiet watchers of motion, scanning the darkness each night with patient eyes. Their telescopes catch the faint glimmer. Data streams through fiber cables, across oceans and mines. The world learns of a visitor from the interstellar dark. In that moment, you feel something stir, an ancient curiosity, the same one that once lifted your ancestors' eyes to the same stars. You wonder where it came from. What sun once warmed its dust? What planet did it never quite become? Perhaps it was flung away from a forming solar system long ago, exiled by the dance of gravity between newborn giants in another corner of the galaxy. Someone might look up and see a comet from our own system and call it alien too. You realize that exile and journey are twins in the story of the cosmos. The comet moves in silence. There is no sound in space, only motion and light. Yet its sound feels like music. You imagine its surface rough, frozen, layered with time. Each ridge a memory of pressure, each grain a fossil of a star's dust. It carries within it carbon, water, perhaps organic molecules, the seeds from which life on Earth once grew. You begin to see it not as chaos, but as continuity. You close your eyes and picture it approaching the sun. The star's gravity bends its path, but cannot hold it. Light presses against it, forming two tails, one of gas, one of dust. The gas tail points straight away from the sun, pushed by radiation. The dust tail curves, obeying inertia. Together, they trace a pale arc across the dark. From far away, you would think it was a wound of light healing itself in motion. The name 3I/ATLAS feels clinical, but you sense something deeper, a story folded in that code. The 3I means it is the third interstellar object ever detected. Before it came, there was Oumuamua the first and Borisov the second. Each appeared unexpectedly, rewriting what we thought we knew about isolation. You feel that same humility now, that Earth, so large in your mind, is but a grain of warmth in a vast cold sea. You imagine an astronomer looking through their telescope at dawn. The sky lightens, the data ends, but their thoughts keep wandering. What does it mean for something to come from beyond the sun's reach? What happens when the cosmos sends a message written not in words, but in motion? You realize that the visitor is not chaos at all. It is connection, a thread woven across the distances that separate star from star. You think about how it passes through space untouched, and yet it changes everything it nears. The sunlight reveals it, scientists measure it, people dream about it. A single rock of ice, no larger than a mountain, stirs thoughts that ripple across the species who watch. That is the power of contact, even without a touch. The comet does not slow. It cannot. Its speed exceeds the sun's hold. As it approaches, it brightens, a brief flare of visibility before fading again into the deep. You can almost feel its passage, a shiver through the invisible structure of the solar system. The planets do not notice, but you do. Somewhere in your mind something ancient wakes, the awareness of motion beyond comprehension, and yet perfectly natural. It is easy to call it chaos. Headlines do, but the universe has never known chaos, only movement and balance in larger patterns than the human mind can hold. What seems disorder to you is harmony from a higher view. The comet's path is not an accident. It is a consequence, the long echo of forces set in motion before Earth ever cooled. You imagine standing beneath the night sky, looking up. A streak of light, faint but certain, moves against the fixed stars. For a moment, you feel both small and immense. You realize that you too are a traveler, made of atoms once flung from dying stars, now returned to consciousness. The visitor reminds you of what you already are, part of everything, passing through the same shared space. You breathe slowly, matching the rhythm of its distant glide. The thought brings calm, that everything moving is also at rest, from another point of view. Even in constant motion there is stillness. Even in distance there is belonging. As the comet continues its path toward the inner system, astronomers track it with growing wonder. Instruments record, models predict, equations hum softly in the background of thought. But beyond all data, there remains the quiet sense that something has arrived to remind the solar system of its openness. That the space between stars is not empty, but full of potential encounters. You close your eyes and let that idea settle in your mind. The visitor from nowhere does not bring destruction, it brings perspective. It shows you that nothing truly belongs to one place. Every atom, every orbit, every flicker of light is connected to something larger, unseen and beautifully continuous. Somewhere far ahead, 3I/ATLAS is still travelling, unbound, unafraid, untouched. His journey is long, its destination unknown. But as you watch it fade into the sunlight, you feel something gentle rise inside you. The curiosity to keep watching, to keep learning, to keep reaching into the dark. And as it drifts closer, sunlight beginning to trace its contours, you sense another presence waiting. The silent eyes that will soon find it and name it again. You wonder what it means to see the edge of infinity, and how the next chapter begins when you finally look back at it. You wake to the sound of wind moving across stone, the kind of wind that travels through high, thin air. Around you, mountains rise into a deep, dark sky. On their peaks, enormous instruments stand, telescopes with polished mirrors, and radio dishes that look like giant white petals facing the stars. These are the eyes of humanity, open and unblinking, watching the slow pulse of infinity. You picture them, the Atacama Desert in Chile, dry as bone, where water and clouds rarely intrude. The frozen silence of Mauna Kea in Hawaii, where thin air sharpens the stars into impossible clarity. The giant radio arrays in New Mexico that listen to the sky in frequencies your ears will never hear. Each one is a listener, a watcher, a patient recorder of what the universe whispers. The light that reaches these telescopes is not new. It left its source long before you were born, sometimes before Earth itself existed. You realize that to look far is to look back, every photon a time traveler. When astronomers turn their mirrors toward the faint glimmer of 3I/ATLAS, they are seeing it not as it is, but as it was moments, minutes, or even hours ago. Light, after all, has distance to cross, and even in its speed it carries delay. You feel awe at this simple truth. Observation is a form of time travel. The universe reveals its past not through words, but through light that has endured. The telescopes, patient and tireless, translate this light into data, patterns of brightness and motion, spectral mixture lines, and chemical clues. From these patterns, humans learn to read the language of the cosmos. You imagine being one of the astronomers. You sit in a small control room surrounded by quiet screens. Outside, the telescope's dome moves slowly, aligning itself with invisible coordinates. You check the readings, the faint object is there, drifting against a field of stars. It's only a pixel in the vast image, yet that pixel holds everything. A direction, a history. In that moment, you understand that the act of looking is an act of connection. To observe something so distant that it may never return is to declare that existence matters, no matter how fleeting. The comet does not know it's being watched, yet it is now a part of human story, recorded in light, in mathematics, in quiet wonder. The mirrors of telescopes are not just glass, they are shaped with precision finer than a human hair. Coated with silver or aluminum to reflect the faintest glimmers. Even a grain of dust can distort the light's path, so they are kept spotless, shielded from touch, from breath, from imperfection. You think of this care as devotion, a reverence for clarity. The clearer the mirror, the purer the truth it reveals. And then there are the telescopes that do not look but listen. Radio telescopes spread across valleys and plains capture waves longer than light, echoes of cosmic events, pulsars spinning like metronomes, hydrogen clouds breathing softly in the interstellar dark. You picture the data as music too low to hear, a slow hum of creation and decay. In space itself, telescopes float beyond the blur of atmosphere. The Hubble Space Telescope, the James Webb, and others peer into darkness undisturbed by air or gravity's trembling hand. They see the faintest galaxies and the closest comets alike. Their eyes never blink, their hearts never sleep. Through them, humanity extends its senses far beyond flesh and bone. You find peace in this thought, that every observation, every photograph, every plotted orbit is an act of patience. Science is not a rush toward discovery but a deep listening. The universe does not reveal its secrets to the hurried. It rewards those who wait in stillness. As 3I/LAS approaches, observatories around the world coordinate their gaze. Optical telescopes study its shape and color. Infrared eyes watch its heat. Spectrometers divide its light into rainbows to decode its chemistry. Each wavelength adds another layer to its story. How fast it moves, what it's made of, what starlight shaped it long ago. Through this collective watching, you sense a unity forming not between stars but between minds. Astronomers who have never met share their data, aligning their findings like voices in harmony. Across continents and languages, they listen together to a single note in the cosmic song. You realize that science too is a form of compassion, the choice to look outward, to care about what lies beyond oneself. There's a quiet irony in it all. The comet, untouched by gravity's ownership, travels freely. And yet, to understand it, humans build instruments bound to Earth's crust or orbit. Fragile creatures anchored to a single world, reaching outward with machines of glass and code. You smile at the beauty of that contradiction. Limitation as the source of imagination. Night deepens over the mountain. The stars sharpen. Inside the observatory, red lights glow softly, so the astronomer's eyes remain dark adjusted. A printer hums, a soft voice murmurs coordinates. Outside, a faint wind sweeps across the dome. You can almost hear the telescope breathe as it tracks the visitor's motion, his massive gears turning with gentleness. You picture the data streaming in real time, a trickle of photons converted to numbers, numbers to graphs, graphs to meaning. Somewhere a researcher frowns, then smiles. A pattern emerges. The orbits tilt, its speed relative to the sun, its composition hinting at unfamiliar ratios. Every discovery begins as a whisper like this, a quiet change in the data that makes the world briefly hold its breath. You lean into that breath. In the vast silence of space, everything is motion, yet nothing feels hurried. The comet continues its path. The telescopes continue their watching. Between them stretches the invisible web of light that connects everything that sees and everything that is seen. And you are part of that web too, each thought another reflection, another mirror catching the glimmer of truth. Far above, clouds drift unseen. Below, the earth rotates, carrying night into morning. But on these peaks and plains, the instruments stay fixed, eyes wide, watching the edge of infinity. You sense that something new is coming, not a catastrophe, but an understanding. The astronomers will soon trace the visitor's path more precisely. They will calculate where it came from, how it moves, what forces guide it. Yet even before the equations settle, you already feel the deeper question forming quietly within you. If light can travel across eternity to reach your eyes, what else might the universe be trying to say, Set? And what will you learn when you begin to listen not with sight, but with silence? You open your eyes to motion, not noise or colour, but the silent geometry of movement. The universe is never still. Every grain of dust, every star, every atom dances in accordance with an unseen grammar. You float in that grammar now, tracing the curve of 3I/ATLAS as it sweeps through space. Its path is not random. It is a sentence written in the oldest language, the language of motion. The comet moves through the solar system with purpose, though it does not know it. Its story is told through vectors and velocity, through the pull and release of gravity. You watch its path bend slightly as it feels the sun's distant tug. It obeys, not with thought, but with inevitability. This is how all motion works, not by choice, but by the steady unfolding of energy through time. You imagine gravity not as force, but as conversation. The sun speaks first, its mass shaping the space around it into soft curvature. The comet listens, feeling that curvature as attraction. The closer it drifts, the more urgently the conversation unfolds. But it is not dominance, it is a dance. Both bodies pull on each other, both shift imperceptibly. Nothing moves alone. Every planet, every moon, every wandering stone contributes a whisper to this cosmic dialogue. Each object curves space just enough to be felt by its neighbours. Together, they weave a web of motion so intricate that even chaos becomes pattern. You think of Newton, sitting under a tree watching an apple fall and seeing not simplicity, but the whole universe moving with it. In your mind, you picture the orbit, not a line, but a curve drawn through the dark. Elliptical or parabolic, each path carries meaning. For comets bound to the sun, the orbit is closed, returning in centuries or millennia. But 3/ATLAS travels on a hyperbolic arc. It enters, loops near the sun, and escapes forever. That is the grammar of freedom. Motion so great that no gravity can cage it. You find comfort in that thought. Even gravity, that invisible hand that holds planets in place, cannot keep everything. Some things are meant to pass through, to remind you that permanence is not the same as harmony. The comet's path is brief, but it honours the laws as fully as any planet's endless revolution. Astronomers study this motion with care. They calculate eccentricity, the measure of how stretched an orbit is. For Earth, it is almost a circle, steady and balanced. For 3I/ATLAS, it is an open door. Eccentricity greater than 1 means escape, a line that never closes back upon itself. In that number, you read the comet's destiny, to pass once and never again. You reflect on the word orbit. It means to return, to circle, to be held, bisque. But what of those who do not orbit, who only pass by? They too are part of the pattern. The universe needs both the circling and the passing, both the bound and the free. The balance lies not in stillness, but in coexistence. Imagine looking at the solar system from far above, as if you could step outside it and see all at once. You would see threads of motion like woven silk. The planets move slowly, predictably. Their paths are smooth, almost musical. Then from the edge, a new thread flashes across, swift, bright, temporary. That is 3I/ATLAS. A single note played once in a vast composition. Its speed is its song. To understand that song, astronomers use equations. They speak of velocity, acceleration, angular momentum. But to you, these are rhythms, not numbers. Velocity is the tempo of existence. Momentum is the memory of every movement that came before. You realize that the entire universe is choreography. Nothing static, everything swaying to unseen time. Even you sitting still are not still. The Earth carries you around the Sun at 30 kilometers per second. The Sun carries you around the Milky Way at 230 kilometers per second. The galaxy itself drifts through space at hundreds of kilometers per second more. And yet, within this vast cascade of movement, you feel peace. Motion is not chaos, it is belonging. You let that realization settle. The language of motion is universal, spoken by everything from electrons to galaxies. The same equations that guide 3I/ATLAS also describe the swing of pendulums and the orbit of moons. The universe repeats its grammar across every scale, from the smallest atom to the largest structure. It is a single unbroken dialect of being. At times, astronomers call this mechanics, but the word feels too cold. You prefer to call it rhythm. The rhythm of orbits, the rhythm of tides, the rhythm of light travelling across the void. When the comet swings near the Sun, it gains speed, not because it chooses to, but because that is the rule. Energy converts, potential becomes motion, light becomes heat. The rhythm continues, unbroken. You watch in your mind as the comet curves around the Sun, its path tightening, its speed rising. Dust lifts from its surface, forming the long, luminous tail you'll soon see in telescopes. Every particle released follows its own miniature orbit, spreading out like words scattered from a page. Together, they form a sentence that fades, yet remains meaningful in its beauty. Gravity writes the first half of the story, momentum writes the rest. Once the comet has swung past its closest point, perihelion, gravity's pull weakens. The visitor begins to leave, its tail stretching farther behind. Soon it will cross the threshold where the Sun's voice becomes whisper. Beyond that, only the galaxy speaks, a language of slow, endless drift. You realize that motion is not just about travel, it's about balance. For every pull there is a push, for every orbit an escape. The universe maintains itself through perfect exchange. Nothing is lost, only transformed, potential into kinetic, attraction into release, stillness into spin. Even decay is a kind of movement, a surrender to time's soft persuasion. It comforts you, this idea that even chaos is fluent. What seems random in your brief view may be harmony in a wider one. The paths of asteroids, comets, planets, and gibboned stars interweave like threads in an unseen tapestry. You may never see the whole, but you can feel its coherence, a calm pulse behind every orbit. As you drift deeper into thought, you see again the telescopes from before. Their lenses trace these paths across the heavens, turning data into curves, curves into understanding. The astronomers' graphs are not just science, they are translations of motion into meaning. Every plotted arc is a phrase in the universe's language, and 3I/ATAS speaks it fluently. You think about what it means for a single rock to teach such lessons. It has no purpose, no awareness, and yet it becomes teacher to all who watch. Through its speed, you learn patience. Through its freedom, you learn balance. You begin to suspect that the universe speaks not only through what it creates, but through how it moves. And as you follow the comet's path farther inward, nearing the warmth of sunlight, a new question rises, one that glows softly at the edge of comprehension. If every motion has meaning, then what does it mean when movement begins to blur, when pattern seems to dissolve and what you call chaos quietly takes its place? The word chaos ripples through your mind like a sudden storm. You hear it in the breathless tones of news anchors, in the trembling voice of a scientist describing 3I/ATLAS as a chaotic body. But when you close your eyes, when you look deeper into the black between the stars, you begin to sense that chaos is not destruction. It is motion. It is change wearing the mask of confusion. You imagine the comet's path, wild, tilted, unpredictable, not bound by the calm ellipses of planets. Its orbit slices through the solar system like a wandering thought. Astronomers map its trajectory, each new calculation refining the unknown. The numbers seem unstable at first, shifting like sand, but beneath those fluctuations lies a pattern, a resonance between gravity, sunlight, and the slow drift of time. You realize that what we call chaos is simply a system too complex for our quick minds. Nature is not random, it only appears that way when we cannot yet hear its rhythm. The orbits of planets, the tumbling of dust, the flicker of magnetic fields, all obey the same gentle mathematics. It is the same principle that guides a heartbeat, or the way your breath unconsciously synchronizes with thought. In dynamical systems, scientists speak of sensitivity to initial conditions. A butterfly's wings, they say, can change the course of a hurricane. You imagine that butterfly now, delicate against the cosmic backdrop. Perhaps a grain of dust near 3/TLAS, deflected just slightly, could shift the comet's future by millions of kilometers. It is not chaos, it is infinite precision, far beyond what our eyes can trace. You drift into this idea that balance and disorder are partners in the same dance. The planets move in measured circles, but those circles wobble. Moons tug, light pushes, comets graze past, and each touch adds a note to the grand composition. This isn't instability, it is the pulse of creation, repeating endlessly but never exactly the same. You picture a pendulum swinging. If it hangs perfectly still, it feels lifeless. But tilt it slightly, give it energy, freedom, and it moves in arcs that overlap and blur. Over time, the path seems unpredictable, yet every motion arises from simple rules. That is how the universe works, a delicate order hidden in perpetual motion. 3I/TLAS glides through that invisible architecture. Its journey seems chaotic because it belongs to no familiar system, no steady orbit around the sun. Yet even this visitor obeys gravity's call, it bows slightly to Jupiter's pull, feels the sun's warmth, leaves trails of dust that shimmer like calligraphy across the dark. You realize it's not chaos at all, it's choreography you cannot yet read. In chaos theory, there are shapes called strange attractors. They look like loops or spirals endlessly folding into themselves. A drop of dye swirling through water, a storm spiraling on Jupiter. Even the rhythm of your heartbeat follows these patterns. Every system, from a galaxy to a cell, tends toward beauty, a hidden geometry that arises from motion itself. You let the thought settle like dust on still air. The universe does not fear disorder. It uses it to create. Clouds scatter light into sunsets. Unstable stars forge new elements. A comet from another world crashes into ours, and from the shock, new molecules, new beginnings emerge. Chaos is simply the universe trying out new melodies. You imagine standing beneath a dark sky, watching the comet's tail stretch like a ghostly veil. To the naked eye it flickers, unpredictable, alive. But to instruments tuned to the rhythm of light, every flicker carries meaning. Spectral lines whisper of carbon, oxygen, and ice, the ingredients of life itself. The supposed disorder becomes a kind of a language. In your chestas, you feel your own heartbeat echoing the same truth. The intervals between beats are not perfectly even. There are tiny variations, healthy, necessary ones, that keep the system alive. If your heart were too precise, too mechanical, it would fail. It is in the small deviations, the little dances of imperfection, that life sustains itself. You begin to see chaos not as an enemy of peace, but as its foundation. The calm you seek is not the stillness of nothingness. It is harmony, motion in balance, a tree swaying in the wind, waves curling and dissolving on a shore, planets drifting through invisible currents. Nothing holds perfectly still, and that is why everything exists. The comet, 3/TLAS, spins and breathes vapor into space, its jets shifting its rotation. These forces push and pull in irregular rhythms, and still the comet endures. Its surface cracks and reforms, its dust scatters and settles. To call it chaos is to misunderstand resilience. The comet changes because that is how it survives. As the night deepens, you picture the whole solar system as a symphony. Each planet, moon, and rock plays its part, sometimes soft, sometimes sudden. The harmonies evolve, expand, and never repeat. The music of the cosmos is not a march of order. It is jazz, improvisation across eternity. And so, as you drift deeper into thought, you feel a kind of peace arise, a peace that includes change. You realize that chaos is not something to be solved, but to be embraced. It is the pulse beneath all things, the heartbeat of stars, the quiet rhythm guiding comets from unknown corners of the galaxy into your gaze. You exhale slowly, watching the comet recede from the inner worlds, trailing a thread of dust like a thought not yet finished. The universe hums around you, vast, uncertain, perfect in its imperfection. And just before you sleep, you wonder, if every chaos holds a pattern, what hidden story lies within the smallest speck of dust that follows behind? You imagine grains of dust, invisible, weightless, yet ancient beyond measure. They drift between stars, silent witnesses to everything that has ever burned, shattered, or been born. When you look at 3I/ATLAS, you see more than a comet. You see the dust of creation itself, fragments of other suns, other worlds gathered into a single shimmering body. Each grain upon its surface is a story. Some formed when a star died in a supernova, scattering its final breath across light years. Others condensed in the cool clouds that followed, swirling within the first whispers of gravity. The comet carries these histories in silence, like a traveller who has forgotten their origin, yet carries souvenirs from home. You picture this dust up close. Tiny crystals of silicate and carbon, flecks of ice holding traces of ammonia and methane. Under sunlight they glow faintly in colours shifting from bronze to silver, from gold to invisible. Through a telescope they seem like nothing more than haze, but through the lens of wonder you realise you are looking at the raw material of life. Comets are archives written in molecular ink. Long ago, when the solar system was young, billions of such wanderers circled a chaotic newborn sun. They collided, evaporated, froze again. A cosmic rain that seeded the early planets. The oceans that cradle your reflection today may once have been hidden inside ice from comets like 3I/ATLAS. Water, in its patience, found a way to belong to Earth. You trace that lineage backward, from your breath to your cells, from your bones to the calcium in stardust. The same dust that glows in a comet's tail glows faintly in you. Every element in your blood, carbon, oxygen, iron, was forged in the core of a dying star. You are not separate from the dust of creation. You are one of its expressions, moving and breathing, aware of your own cosmic ancestry. You picture 3I/ATLAS now, sailing through the dark like a fragile seed. Its path crosses the orbits of giants, then curves gently outward again. Sunlight strikes it unevenly, causing plumes of vapour to erupt and scatter. Each jet releases particles, thousands of tons every hour, yet to space, it is almost nothing. Dust disappears quickly in the vacuum, but its journey continues. It becomes meteoric trails, faint glows, or interplanetary mists drifting between planets. And somewhere, perhaps, a grain from 3I/ATLAS will enter Earth's atmosphere. It will burn gently, invisible to the human eye, but its atoms, hydrogen, carbon, silicon, will join the wind, the soil, the rain. Creation continues not as explosion, but as quiet sharing. The cosmos recycles itself in silence. Scientists study these grains through instruments like Rosetta's Cosima and Stardust's collectors, trapping microscopic pieces in aerogel, fragile as frozen smoke. Within each speck, they find complex organics, amino acids, hydrocarbons and sugars, the same molecules that may have sparked biology on Earth. You think of this not as coincidence, but as rhythm, the universe repeating a pattern that feels like memory. Dust, you realize, is the bridge between stars and life. It carries stories across time. It connects light to matter, the abstract to the tangible. When starlight strikes it, the grain absorbs and re-emits, transforming harsh radiation into a soft, warm glow. That warmth is not random, it is communication, the universe whispering through temperature, through wavelength, through shimmer. If you could hold a single particle of 3I/ATLAS dust, you would not feel it. It would slip between your fingers, too small to grasp. But in your imagination you hold it like a relic, a grain of time. You sense its weight not in mass, but in meaning. It has travelled for billions of years without purpose, yet somehow now it has reached your awareness. That, you think, is creation's most poetic act, to make something meaningless until consciousness gives it story. In laboratories, scientists heat dust samples until they glow. They watch as water vapour escapes, as carbon reacts with oxygen. They chart how molecules change, how they survive the cold of interstellar space. And as they do, something quiet happens. They begin to see beauty in chemistry. Each reaction becomes choreography, atoms spinning, bonding, breaking apart, and finding each other again. You feel it too. The idea that dust, so small, so forgotten, is a language the universe uses to speak softly to itself. Through it, matter remembers. Through it, light leaves fingerprints. Through it, life begins. You imagine being on the surface of 3I/ATLAS, looking outward. The sun is a distant star, too bright to stare at, too far to warm you. Around you, everything is silent but alive with motion. Ice cracks, dust lifts, the tail stretches endlessly, streaming backward in the solar wind. From here, the cosmos looks still, yet every second particles detach and drift into infinity. You realize that creation is never a single moment. It is continuous, unfolding, scattering, beginning again. In this dust lies paradox, fragility and permanence intertwined. A single grain can vanish in an instant, yet the atoms within it may persist for eternity. They will form new stars, new worlds, new beings who one day might look back and call this moment history. You are part of that continuity, just as the comet is. The dust of creation does not ask for worship, it asks for awareness. When you breathe, you inhale it. When you exhale, you return it. Your lungs, your skin, your thoughts, all shaped by the same cosmic matter that drifts through 3I/ATLAS's wake. You are not an observer of the universe. You are the universe, briefly aware of itself. As you drift towards sleep, you imagine one grain falling slowly through sunlight, glowing for an instant before vanishing into air. You wonder how many stories are hidden in that light, how many beginnings disguised as endings. The comet fades into distance, but its dust lingers, scattered through invisible threads that weave you quietly into the cosmos. And in that soft thought, you feel the next question rising. If every grain carries memory, what messages are hidden in the light itself, the messenger that follows? You follow a beam of light leaving the surface of 3I/ATLAS. It begins as sunlight, ancient and unwavering, touching the comet's dust, scattering into countless directions. One ray travels toward Earth, crossing the cold between worlds, carrying within it stories, silent, weightless, perfect. You imagine catching that light in your eye, feeling how it trembled across millions of kilometers just to arrive here now. Light is a messenger, though it does not speak. It tells its stories through color, through frequency, through how it bends and fades. To you it feels soft, but to physicists it is information itself, a stream of particles called photons. Each photon is a note in the cosmic song, vibrating with the energy of its source. You breathe slowly as you imagine spectroscopy, the art of listening to light. A prism or a diffraction grating splits the beam into a spectrum, unfolding it like a scroll. Within its colors lie secrets, elements, temperatures, motions. Hydrogen glows in crimson and turquoise, oxygen hums in green, carbon flickers in faint gold. Every element leaves its own fingerprint in light, a pattern of dark and bright lines that cannot be forged. When astronomers study 3I/ATLAS, they are reading its autobiography written in photons. They see icy signatures, water, carbon dioxide, ammonia cyanide, and in that data they glimpse its birthplace. Maybe it was forged in a region rich with carbon dust orbiting a distant star that died long ago. Maybe it wandered through interstellar clouds, gathering whispers from every encounter. Light records these journeys the way rings mark a tree's growth. You imagine standing inside an observatory surrounded by quiet machines. The telescope tracks the comet across the sky. The dome hums, the air smells faintly of metal and cold. On a monitor, colors appear, faint at first, then blooming into spectra. Each line tells a story older than language. You realize that the act of observing is not passive, it is communion. You're not merely watching light, you're being touched by it. Light moves at 299,792 kilometers per second, yet it feels patient. It doesn't rush. It travels straight unless curved by gravity, weaving through the fabric of space-time like thread through cloth. Even when it crosses billions of years, it never tires, never forgets its origin. A photon emitted when the universe was young still glides somewhere, its memory intact. You think of that persistence, of how fragile things can carry endless endurance. A single beam from the comet might contain the story of its dust, the elements it holds, the temperature of its surface, even the rhythm of its rotation. Every flicker is a syllable in a wordless poem. And through that poem you come to know a world you'll never touch. When the light finally enters your eyes, it becomes electricity. The cells of your retina absorb it, transforming photons into signals. Your brain interprets those signals as vision, as shape, color, wonder. You realize that sight itself is translation. The universe speaks in radiation. Your mind turns it into experience. In this quiet exchange, consciousness and cosmos meet. You reflect on how far that connection extends. Light from the sun nourishes every living thing. Plants capture it through photosynthesis, turning photons into sugar, into life. Your own body runs on that stored sunlight passed through food, breath, and warmth. Every heartbeat, every thought, every dream glows faintly with solar energy. You are made of light remembered. Even now, the light from 3I/ATLAS tells you about time. Because it travels at a finite speed, you never see the comet as it is, only as it was. You're always looking into the past. Astronomy is the art of remembering, of seeing what no longer exists in the same form. That realization brings both awe and calm. Nothing truly disappears, just shifts into light, carrying its essence forward. You picture photons as messengers in a vast silent network, each one delivering a fragment of understanding. Some are absorbed by dust re-emitted in warmth. Some bounce between atoms, waiting centuries before finding a path. Some fall into black holes, where their message becomes part of gravity's whisper. Even disappearance, you realize, is a kind of transformation. The light from 3I/ATLAS may fade from your sky soon. Its brightness will wane as it drifts away, sunlight no longer catching its surface. But its data remains, in observatory archives, in human memory, in the quiet hum of computers decoding patterns. Light's message doesn't vanish, it simply changes hands. You close your eyes and imagine what light might sound like if you could hear it. Perhaps a soft hum, a spectrum of tones layered in infinite chords, infrared like a deep heartbeat, ultraviolet like a whisper, visible light a melody woven between them. You would hear stars breathing, comets sighing, galaxies expanding. You would hear the universe telling its own story through resonance. And yet, in its silence, light teaches something deeper. Patience. It travels alone, unafraid of distance, carrying its truth without demand. Every wave that touches you is proof that something once existed, once shone. To see light is to believe that connection endures even across emptiness. You open your eyes again to the imagined glow of the comet's tail, a veil woven entirely from scattered sunlight. Each particle reflects and refracts, sending a message outward. I am here, I was made, I am changing. You feel those same words echo quietly in yourself. As you breathe in that realization, your thoughts soften. The night sky feels less like a void and more like a conversation. Every star, every glow, a letter written to whoever might listen. You are one of those listeners, decoding the ancient language of photons with awe and gratitude. And as the last light from the comet fades, you sense a new presence stirring, invisible but constant, a wind that carries not light, but charged breath from the sun itself. You wonder what it might whisper. You close your eyes and feel a breath that isn't air. It moves not through lungs, but through space, a stream of charged particles, flowing endlessly from the sun. The solar wind, they call it, invisible, relentless, gentle and fierce at once. It touches everything, planets, dust, comets, even you. Though you can't feel it on your skin, it moves through the entire solar system, carrying the sun's quiet whisper. From 3I/ATLAS, that whisper feels like pressure. Tiny particles, protons, electrons, fragments of atoms, race outward at hundreds of kilometers per second. When they meet the comet, they collide with gas and ice, striking atoms until they glow. A tail unfurls, long and bright, pointing away from the sun. It is not pushed by wind as you know it, but by the delicate push of plasma and photons. You imagine standing near that tail, watching sunlight weave with charged breath. It shimmers like silk in the cosmic air. The solar wind never stops. It is born in the sun's corona, the outermost layer of its atmosphere, a realm so hot that atoms break apart. These fragments are swept away by magnetic fields, launched into the void. This is not a storm of destruction, but an act of sharing. The sun, losing itself, feeds the space around it with warmth and energy. Its whisper becomes the heartbeat of the solar system. Every planet hears that whisper differently. Mercury, closest to the source, faces it like a flame, its surface scorched by the radiation. Earth hears it through auroras, curtains of green and violet that ripple across polar skies. Jupiter shapes it into massive waves of magnetism, echoing like thunder. And comets like 3I/ATLAS, they dance. Their tails bloom under its touch, transforming sunlight and plasma into living art. You picture the sun not as a distant star, but as a breathing being. Each flare is an exhalation. Each gust of plasma is a sigh. Its magnetic field twists and curls, forming spirals that extend billions of kilometers. The solar wind carries these patterns outward, imprinting every particle with the signature of the star's pulse. When the wind reaches the comet, it speaks in temperature, in pressure, in light. In laboratories, scientists mimic this process. They watch how plasma behaves under magnetic fields, how it curls into vortices, how it self-organizes into order from chaos. They call it magnetohydrodynamics, the dance between fluid motion and electromagnetic force. You think of it instead as choreography written in invisible ink. The solar wind is not uniform. It varies, sometimes steady, sometimes turbulent. When the sun flares, the wind becomes a storm, racing outward with immense energy. If Earth lies in its path, satellites feel its push, power grids flicker, auroras ignite at lower latitudes. To most, these are disturbances, but to the universe they are conversation. The sun speaking louder for a moment, reminding all its children that it is alive. When 3I/ATLAS moves through this current, its plasma tail grows longer. You imagine it now, a river of ions glowing electric blue, curving gently behind the nucleus. Solar wind meets cometary gas, stripping electrons, painting light across the dark. Instruments detect these interactions as X-rays, soft pulses born from collisions invisible to the naked eye. Each pulse tells scientists how fast the wind blows, how strong the sun's breath truly is, and yet amid this power there is grace. The solar wind travels for billions of kilometers, and by the time it reaches the edge of the solar system it slows. There, it meets the interstellar medium, another ocean of charged dust and gas. The two winds merge, forming the heliopause, a vast frontier where the sun's influence fades into the galaxies. Voyager spacecraft have crossed this boundary, their sensors feeling the change like the shift from breath to silence. You imagine 3I/ATLAS passing through this threshold one day, leaving the solar system behind. The whisper will grow fainter, replaced by the quiet of interstellar space. The comet will carry traces of that breath, ions embedded in its dust, magnetic fields woven through its tail, reminders of the star that once touched it. Even in darkness, that memory will glow faintly, a souvenir of warmth. On Earth, when you look up at the night sky, you don't see the wind itself, but you see its fingerprints, auroras, comet tails, the gentle bend of a magnetic compass. You see connection. You understand that even across emptiness, energy flows. Nothing in the cosmos is still. Everything moves, breathes, exchanges. The sun's wind that touches a comet also shapes your weather, your satellites, your sky. You take a slow breath, feeling the metaphor settle. The solar wind is not unlike your own exhalation, unseen, yet carrying part of you outward. You breathe carbon, water, warmth into the air. The sun breathes plasma into space. Both are acts of continuity, of existence reminding itself it is alive. In that realization, you feel your smallness transform into belonging. You are not outside this system watching from a safe distance. You're within it. The particles that fill the sky also move through you. A single breath on Earth contains atoms once touched by solar wind, once part of a comet's tail, once drifting between stars. You're made of movement. The comet continues its journey through this radiant current, its tail rippling like a flag in a cosmic breeze. It listens to the sun's whisper, responds in colour, and keeps drifting forward. Behind it, the particles it releases join the same stream, carried outward into the infinite. The whisper becomes a chorus, and as you rest in that image, the comet bathed in invisible breath, glowing softly in the dark, a thought arises like dawn over the horizon. If the sun can send its voice across billions of kilometers, what deeper harmony links all these motions together? What silent music holds the planets, comets, and stars in rhythm? You sense planets tugging faintly on the passing visitor, their invisible hands extending across millions of kilometers. The space between them seems empty, yet it trembles with silent force, a tension woven through the very fabric of existence. The comet, small and bright, is no longer just a wanderer. It is a note struck within a grand and ancient harmony. The orbits of planets hum with slow precision, each one a circle of discipline carved by eons of motion. Mercury twirls close to the sun's blazing heart. Venus follows with patient grace, and Earth spins in delicate equilibrium, all of them locked in a ballet that began before minds or words existed. Through that order you begin to hear something, not sound, but a feeling that carries the weight of music. Gravity, you realize, is not only a pull, it is communication, an unspoken conversation between every object that has mass. It binds comets to stars, stars to galaxies, and galaxies to the unseen scaffolding of the cosmos. Every motion answers another. Every curve in a planet's path whispers back to the sun. The harmony is not perfect. It sways and flexes, but never truly breaks. As 3I/a TLAS drifts closer, the solar system's rhythm shifts ever so slightly. The planets sense its presence, though faintly, like a distant instrument entering an already complex composition. Jupiter, immense and resonant, sends its deep gravitational tone across the void. The comet feels it, a subtle nudge, a note of awareness in its path. For a moment it seems so to tremble within that invisible field before continuing on. You close your eyes and imagine the system as a vast orchestra, each planet playing a frequency of gravity. Mars beats steady percussion, Saturn hums with slow waves, Uranus and Neptune provide distant, soft harmonics. Even the sun vibrates with the gravity of its own light, commanding the tempo with unyielding grace. And through it all, the comet's movement adds tension, a fleeting improvisation in the song of stability. Mathematically, this music is a resonance. Planets align at certain intervals, their orbits syncing like repeating chords. A moon's revolution matches a planet's spin. One world's pull enhances another's, and balance emerges from interaction. Yet in that same dance lies the possibility of chaos, a moment when harmony trembles, when the smallest deviation can echo through millennia. You picture the solar system's birth, dust swirling into orbits, collisions forming moons, gravity sculpting what would one day seem serene. That serenity, you understand now, is not stillness, but perpetual motion in perfect proportion. The calm you see from afar is only the visible part of a vast, moving equilibrium. The comet passes near Mars, and computer models predict tiny fluctuations in its orbit. Nothing catastrophic, just minute adjustments, but those shifts ripple outward. A slight change today could alter a distant encounter centuries from now. You realize the orchestra does not play a single composition. It evolves endlessly, each note born from countless interactions before it. In your mind, gravity ceases to be a law and becomes a melody of influence. You begin to hear its chords in everyday life, in the fall of an apple, in the tides that breathe along Earth's coasts, in your own weight pressing softly against the ground. You too are part of this orchestration. Your body, composed of stardust, responds to the same silent forces that guide comets and worlds. Far beyond the visible planets, the Kuiper belt hums faintly, icy remnants of creation still circling, still listening. The Oort cloud stretches farther still, its countless frozen fragments waiting in quiet suspense. They are the faint background notes of the solar system's score, the hum that never fades. 3I/ATLAS moves through that region now, a traveller among echoes, and as you observe it, something inside you resonates. You feel that every movement in the cosmos mirrors an inner rhythm, the rise and fall of thought, the beat of your heart, the pulse of curiosity that drives you to understand. You're not outside this orchestra. You are one of its listeners and instruments both. When you open your eyes again, the comet is a faint blur of light against the black. The planets continue their eternal arcs, their gravitational music inaudible but profoundly felt. You understand now that stability in the universe is not the absence of change, but the harmony of motion, the constant balancing act that turns infinite complexity into peace. The universe breathes in time with itself. Every orbit, every fall, every glimmer of dust follows the rhythm written into space-time. And in that grand silence, the music of gravity plays on, endless, elegant, and true. You see Newton's laws as lullabies of motion, soft and eternal. They hum in the way planets turn in the arc of a comet's flight, in the quiet fall of an apple. Each formula carries the gentleness of invisibility. Force, mass, acceleration, a balance that makes motion predictable yet wondrous. The simplicity of those lines hides an infinite depth, like the repeating chords of a song that never ends. In the silence of your room, you imagine writing the equation F equals ma across the stars. It's small, almost fragile, yet it governs worlds. The comet 3I/ATLAS obeys it, bending its path subtly with every tug of gravity. You realize how mathematics is not just a language, it's the sheet music of the cosmos, a way for the universe to hum itself into existence. Then slowly, Einstein's voice joins the melody. E equals mc squared. E equals mc squared. The soft, endless harmony between energy and matter. You hear it like a violin entering a quiet orchestra, lifting Newton's melody into a higher octave. Space and time begin to curve. Gravity is no longer a pull, but the bending of a grand stage on which everything dances. Each equation adds a new instrument, each idea another rhythm. Together they create something beyond comprehension, a cosmic symphony, written not for the ears but for the mind. You picture field lines flowing like invisible strings. The equations of electromagnetism ripple through them, whispering Maxwell's unending tune. How light and electricity move together, partners in a timeless waltz. The comet glows faintly in this light, its plasma tail shimmering as it crosses magnetic fields. You realize that even beauty, that shimmer you see through telescopes, is a solution to an equation. The mathematicians who came before, from Pythagoras to Kepler to Gauss, all listened to this music differently. They didn't just calculate, they heard patterns. Kepler, watching Mars dance around the sun, thought in harmonies, imagining planetary distances as notes in a divine song. You understand now what he meant, that to know the universe is not merely to measure it, but to feel its rhythm. Every curve, every constant, every ratio is part of this silent performance. The inverse square law is a drumbeat, steady and sure, pulsing through the void. The differential equations of motion weave harmonies through time, solving themselves endlessly as stars move and comets drift. There are no mistakes, no missed notes, only infinite complexity resolving into structure again and again. You turn your gaze back to 3I/ATLAS. Its orbit, plotted by computers and telescopes, is just one line in a sea of equations, but that line is alive. It moves with the sun's pull, with Jupiter's nudge, with the invisible curve of space-time beneath it. What looks random from afar becomes exquisite order up close. A reminder that chaos, too, has a score if you know how to listen. You imagine standing on the edge of the cosmos, holding a chalkboard vast enough to write all the equations that describe everything. The gravity of galaxies, the decay of atoms, the quantum tremble of emptiness, all of it could fit there, in symbols no larger than a fingertip. You would see not cold calculation, but structure, rhythm and meaning. Mathematics as music made of truth. And then you realize you are part of the composition. Your heartbeat, your thoughts, your dreams, all move according to those same equations. Chemistry is your rhythm section, biology your melody, consciousness your improvisation. The same physics that guides comets guides your breath. You too are written into the score. When the comet vanishes into the dark again, you feel the echo of numbers behind it. Newton's clarity, Einstein's grace, Maxwell's harmony. You understand now that mathematics is not about solving, it's about listening. It's how the universe speaks softly to those willing to hear. In that stillness, you close your eyes and let the equations sing. The cosmos hums in perfect symmetry, a vast, unending symphony, composed not of sound, but of understanding. You turn your gaze homeward, to the pale blue world below. From far away, Earth looks like a reflection caught in glass, delicate, glowing softly in the dark. You watch it rise from the void as 3I/ATLAS passes silently through the outer reaches of the solar system. Against the infinite black, your planet feels impossibly small, a fleck of colour held together by balance and breath. The comet, ancient and unbound, minds you how rare this sight is. In a universe of endless cold and vacuum, here is warmth, here is atmosphere, a skin so thin it could vanish if touched too hard. You feel its fragility, this invisible veil that holds air, water and life. It hums faintly with oxygen and cloud, moving in slow, swirling grace. Every sunrise is a quiet miracle of scattering light, every gust of wind a whisper from the planet's living skin. From space the Earth is almost silent. Storms move like slow-breathing lungs, oceans shimmer with light, and cities glimmer faintly at night, like neurons firing in a vast mind. You sense how alive it is, how every river and tree participates in the great rhythm of equilibrium. You realize that life is not separate from the planet. It is the way the planet feels itself. You imagine the thin line of the atmosphere again, a boundary softer than silk. It protects everything beneath from the raw violence of space, radiation, cold, and the endless fall of meteors. Yet it also depends on a delicate balance of gases, nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, held in proportion by life itself. Plants breathe what animals exhale. Oceans absorb what skies release. Even now the balance trembles, but it holds. The Earth continues to inhale and exhale in rhythm with the stars. You picture yourself standing somewhere on its surface, perhaps on a quiet beach or a high mountain. You look up, and the sky feels endless. But now you know that the sky is not infinite. It is shallow, a thin ocean of air that fades into nothing. Above it stretches a silence so vast that even sound cannot cross it. You take a breath, and for a moment, the weight of that breath feels holy, a reminder of the rare chance to exist between the depths of gravity and the void beyond. The comet, too, carries stories of breath and dust. Its frozen gases, released in sunlight, once drifted through the same cosmic nursery that made the sun and earth. When you see its glowing tail, you're watching history return. Matter from before your planet's birth, now whispering past the home it never knew. You wonder if, from its point of view, Earth is the visitor, bright and fleeting against eternity. You think of all that Earth gives, warmth from within, magnetism to shield, and water that flows through everything alive. You imagine the magnetic field as a guardian halo, invisible lines of force reaching out from molten iron deep below. Without it, the solar wind would strip away the air, turning Earth bare like Mars. But here, beneath this unseen armor, oceans shimmer, clouds rise, and life endures. You understand then that fragility is not weakness. It is a kind of strength born from balance. Through telescopes, astronomers once searched for planets like Earth, and found only barren rocks or gas giants. Now they look farther, discovering thousands of worlds, some too close to their stars, some too far, few in that narrow band where liquid water can exist. The habitable zone, they call it, but you feel the phrase differently now. Habitability is not a location, it is a conversation between light, air and time. And somehow Earth learned the language perfectly. You remember how the first comet visitors, Oumuamua, Borisov, and now 3I/ATLAS, passed through our neighbourhood. They reminded astronomers how much of space is motion and how little of it is home. You think of that often, the rarity of stability in an ocean of movement. Earth's orbit, its tilt, its rotation, every constant is a gift. If any were slightly different, your seasons would vanish, your oceans might freeze or boil, or never form at all. And yet, despite its fragility, Earth endures. Through impacts, extinctions, and ice ages, it keeps its balance. You feel the quiet resilience of a system that knows how to adapt. Life changes, but life remains. Even as you gaze from the calm of night, the forests below release oxygen into your breath. You and the trees, the air and the sea, all part of a single organism called Earth. You exhale slowly, and in that breath is nitrogen that once drifted in ancient skies, carbon that once belonged to stars. You're not separate from this planet, you are its expression. You carry its minerals in your bones, its water in your blood, its air in your lungs. You are what happens when a planet learns to look at itself. Far above, 3/ATLAS continues its flight, unknowing, unanchored. It does not have oceans or forest or breath. Yet it reminds you, through its silence, how precious your world is. You understand now that the fragility of Earth is the source of its beauty. It survives not by being unbreakable, but by knowing how to bend, how to change, how to endure the tides of time. As the comet drifts farther away, you linger in that thought, that home is not defined by boundaries but by balance. And somewhere in the quiet, you feel the next idea stirring, a question rising softly like dawn. Who are the minds that keep watch over this fragile, breathing world? In observatories scattered across mountaintops and deserts, humans keep silent vigil over the night. They wait for light, faint, delayed, ancient, to reach the mirrors and lenses that translate the universe into numbers. You picture them there, faces lit by the glow of monitors, eyes reflecting stars they will never touch. The air around them hums with quiet purpose, a reverence born of curiosity. You imagine stepping into one of these domes. The floor creaks faintly under your shoes. The telescope rises above you like a patient creature of steel and glass, breathing in the sky. Outside, wind whispers over rock. Inside, only the slow turn of motors and the clicking of instruments breaks the stillness. These are not cold machines, you realize. They're extensions of wonder, tools that let the human eye stretch farther than ever before. Somewhere in a quiet corner of the control room, a scientist sips coffee gone lukewarm. They are tired but alert, following a faint trace of light on a digital graph. That trace is 3I/ATLAS, the comet from beyond. Every pixel, every photon carries meaning. To anyone else, it looks like noise, but to them, it's a voice from the deep past, whispering across space. You watch as they adjust a setting, and the pattern sharpens. The visitor is speaking more clearly now. Science, you realize, is not cold precision, it's devotion. Every data point, every uncertainty is part of a long conversation between humans and the cosmos. The astronomer leans closer to the screen, feeling a pulse of excitement. Somewhere inside that faint glimmer is proof of motion, of matter older than Earth itself. Their fingers tremble slightly, not from fatigue, but from awe. You imagine the lineage of those who have watched the sky before, the shepherds who once mapped constellations by memory, the scholars who polished lenses by candlelight, the dreamers who sent instruments beyond Earth's reach, into orbit and beyond. They all share the same desire, to understand without possession, to see without needing to control. The sky has always been humanity's mirror, and every generation finds its reflection there. In laboratories far from these quiet domes, other minds analyze the data. They transform streams of light into spectra, equations, and models. Teams collaborate across continents, astronomers, physicists, chemists, coders, united by shared curiosity. They speak the language of numbers, but beneath it flows emotion. The thrill of discovery, the humility of uncertainty. To study the universe is to practice patience on a cosmic scale. You picture one astronomer standing outside after a long night of data collection. The telescope has gone still, its dome turning away from dawn. They look east, where the first glow of morning softens the sky. For a moment they forget the calculations and feel something older, gratitude. They are part of a chain of minds that stretches back through centuries, all drawn to the same mystery, the quiet dialogue between light and understanding. In that moment, you understand that science is an act of love, not toward answers, but toward questions. To watch the sky is to say, I care about what exists beyond me. It's a kind of prayer, one that doesn't ask for miracles, but listens for them instead. The Comet 3, I/ATLAS, becomes more than an object. It becomes a reminder that even in the vastness of space, attention itself is connection. The astronomers laugh sometimes too, at the stubbornness of clouds, the quirks of software, the long hours that blur days and nights. They tell stories of failed observations and unexpected discoveries, of sleepless weeks rewarded by a single clear night. Their work is grounded in reality, but fueled by something transcendent. Each of them carries a quiet awe that no formula can capture. Through their instruments, you see how human perception expands. A telescope is an eye, a spectrograph an ear. A piece of technology extends the senses, turning the invisible into the known. But even the most advanced devices rely on something more fragile, belief in meaning. Without that, light would remain just light. It is faith, not in divinity, but in understanding, that turns a photon into a story. You think of how many people will never see a comet through a telescope, yet share in its discovery through headlines or images online. The wonder ripples outward, from observatory to classroom, from scientist to dreamer. Each mind adds something new, turning knowledge into culture and culture into care. The act of watching becomes collective, a shared awareness that the universe belongs to no one, and therefore to everyone. Somewhere on Earth, a child looks up at the night sky and asks a question that will echo through their life. Maybe that question will lead them here, to a dome high above the clouds. Maybe it will lead them to build something new, something that sees farther still. You realize that curiosity is not taught, it's remembered. It's the instinct of the universe awakening within itself. As the astronomers pack up for the morning, their instruments cooling in the pale light, one last image arrives from space, a streak of 3 I/TLAS against the stars. The scientists pause, exhausted and content. Another piece of the story has been captured. The data will be studied, debated, loved. You step back and feel a deep calm. All over the world others are watching, from Chile to Hawaii, from the Canary Islands to Antarctica. Together they form a constellation of consciousness, each point glowing with quiet attention. The minds who watch the sky are not apart from it. They are how the sky learns to see itself. And as night gives way to dawn, you sense the next thought rising, not about instruments or data, but about the ideas themselves, the beautiful collisions that give birth to understanding. Theories rise, clash, and settle like dust in sunlight. You watch as minds across the world turn toward 3 I/ATLAS, each one a star in a constellation of curiosity. Ideas drift between them, some colliding, others merging, some dissolving like mist. In this dance of thought, truth is not a fixed point but a moving harmony. Science, you realize, is a living conversation, never ending, always beginning again. In research papers and conference halls, astronomers debate what this comet means. Was it born around another star or in the silent depths between systems? Its chemical signature hints at unfamiliar origins, strange isotopic ratios, unexpected ices. Some believe it was cast out during the chaotic birth of a distant solar system. Others suggest it wandered for billions of years through interstellar space, gathering the whispers of cosmic radiation, carrying messages written in the language of atoms. The disagreements are not harsh, they are symphonic. One scientist's data becomes another's counterpoint. Together they build not certainty, but depth. You picture their minds like planets in motion, each orbiting an idea, each influencing the others through invisible gravitational pulls. When 2 orbits intersect, there is friction, energy, exchange. This is what progress feels like. Not collision in destruction, but collision as creation. In your imagination, you step into one of these discussions. Equations fill the whiteboard like constellations of chalk. A young researcher gestures passionately toward a spectrum on the screen. "Look here," she says. "The carbon monoxide lines are shifted. It must have formed farther from its star." Across the room, an older scientist shakes his head gently. "Or perhaps it was altered by cosmic rays," he offers, smiling. The conversation continues, not as argument, but as music, each note responding, refining, resonating. You realize that knowledge is built this way, through tension and release, theory and revision, question and pause. No discovery stands alone, even the most brilliant insight rests on the quiet persistence of those who came before. Newton once said he stood on the shoulders of giants. You sense that today's astronomers stand on mountains made of countless smaller stones, data points, hypotheses, and dreams stacked across generations. Outside the observatories, the comet glides on, unaware of the debate it has sparked. It carries its mysteries in silence, its frozen gases holding time itself. Every observation, every simulation is just a translation, an attempt to turn the universe's poetry into language. But translation is never perfect. Some meanings are lost, some misunderstood, and yet, in the effort to understand, something beautiful emerges, the shared humility of not knowing everything. You think of how science mirrors the cosmos it studies. Stars form when clouds of dust collapse under gravity, a kind of cosmic argument between chaos and order. The same is true of ideas. The collapse of uncertainty under the weight of curiosity creates new light. Even disagreement becomes a kind of gravity, pulling insight toward clarity. Out of collision, illumination. In the archives of time, other collisions have shaped humanity's view of the universe. Newton and Leibniz disputed calculus but expanded the reach of mathematics. Einstein and Bohr debated the nature of reality itself, determinism versus probability, and from that friction, quantum mechanics was born. You sense that 3/ATLAS continues that tradition, another spark in the infinite dialogue between observation and meaning. The beauty of these collisions lies in their gentleness. No explosion, no war of egos, just the slow abrasion of ideas until something smooth and true remains. Scientists write, review, question, and revise. Each paper is a step, each dataset a breath. The comet passes, but the knowledge it leaves behind becomes permanent, woven into the growing fabric of understanding. You imagine sitting with one of these scientists late at night. Their office is quiet except for the hum of the computer. On the screen, models of 3I/ATLAS swirl in simulated space. They pause to explain orbital dynamics, isotopic abundance, dust-to-gas ratios, but what strikes you most is their expression. Behind every number, there is wonder. Behind every uncertainty, there is peace. They do not seek to conquer the unknown, but to dwell within it, like stargazers listening to the silence between notes. The next morning, those ideas ripple outward through the world. Students read about them, journalists interpret them, poets turn them into metaphors. The comet becomes more than an astronomical event. It becomes part of culture, a shared reflection of curiosity itself. You think of how ideas evolve, how one mind inspires another across years, across languages, across dreams. Thought is its own form of orbit. Somewhere, two researchers send emails at the same time, unknowingly reaching for the same question. How long has 3/ATLAS been travelling? They run simulations, compare star maps, trace potential trajectories through galactic space. Their numbers almost align. Almost. The difference between them, a fraction of a fraction, becomes the seed of another idea. That's how science grows, not through perfection, but through the beauty of almost. And you realize something deeper, that this entire process is an act of love. To question the universe is to care about it, to model its motion, to trace its light, to debate its meaning. These are expressions of tenderness. Every disagreement hides admiration for the same mystery. The more complex the question, the more profound the collaboration. Each hypothesis is a gesture of curiosity offered to the stars. As the day ends, you imagine all those minds connected like neurons, glowing faintly across the planet, observatories, labs, offices, classrooms, each one thinking about the same visitor from nowhere. The comet may be billions of years old, but in its brief passage through our sky, it has awakened a network of wonder. It has reminded humanity that thought itself is a cosmic act. You close your eyes and picture all those intersecting ideas, not as noise, but as harmony. Each question, each theory, each failed attempt becomes a note in the great music of discovery. And somewhere faintly between data and doubt, the next insight is forming. The quiet emergence of a new perspective waiting to be heard. The scientists will return tomorrow. The comet will continue on its path. And in the soft space between those two motions, the journey of an object and the journey of a thought, lies something eternal. A stillness that waits just before another question is born. The comet turns, and for a moment, it is as if the light from countless ages bends across its frozen face. You drift beside it, watching the surface gleam with trapped reflections, suns that no longer shine, dust from stars that collapsed before Earth was even a dream. The tail stretches out like a thin thread of memory, connecting the ancient and the present. You realize this visitor carries the fingerprints of time itself. Each grain of its dust is a record. Carbon, silicate, ions, atoms born in stellar cores, scattered through explosions, gathered again by gravity's quiet insistence. You trace the thought. Every element is an archive, every particle a chapter in the universe's autobiography. You do not need a calendar or a clock. The comet's slow arc through darkness tells you that time is motion, repetition, return. You peer deeper into its nucleus through imagined layers of ice and rock. The deeper you go, the colder it becomes, until even vibration seems to sleep. It is not death you feel there, but preservation. Within those still molecules, the story of billions of years is sealed like a letter that no one yet knows how to read. You picture the first light that struck its surface, the first star that watched it drift away. All of that remains waiting, shimmering, faintly under cosmic frost. The thought comes gently. Perhaps time is not a river flowing forward, but a mirror. Everything reflected, everything still present, only seen from different angles. The comet does not move through time, it reveals it. You are not just watching history pass by, you are standing inside it, part of its reflection. Every photon that touches your eyes has travelled unimaginable distances, crossing epochs to arrive here, now. You are looking into the past, and the past is looking back. Around you the void hums softly. Distant stars pulse, galaxies turn like slow wheels, each movement a beat in the universe's silent rhythm. You imagine time as that rhythm, not linear, not mechanical, but musical. You begin to hear it, not with your ears, but with your sense of wonder. The rising and falling of creation, expansion and collapse, light and shadow, a symphony written in motion and gravity. In that soundless orchestra, the comet plays its quiet note. Its orbit, though brief in human reckoning, is a gesture millions of years long in cosmic language. Somewhere in its path, a faint whisper of dust falls toward a planet, perhaps to seed it with the ingredients of life. You imagine the beginning of oceans, the first breath of air, the shimmer of organic molecules forming from the debris of ancient stars. The past does not vanish, it becomes the present, then the future. The mirror holds it all. You close your eyes and feel time as warmth. The warmth of stars long dead still lingers in you, in the atoms of your skin. You are not apart from this mirror. You are one of its reflections. Your body, your thoughts, your heartbeat, all ripples in the same cosmic continuum. The visitor has travelled light years to remind you that you are never separate from its journey. Then something shifts. The sunlight catches the comet's tail at a new angle, scattering reflections across your vision like shards of ancient glass. In those fragments you glimpse stellar nurseries, clouds of gas birthing new suns. You glimpse red giants swelling with age, white dwarfs cooling into silence. You glimpse galaxies colliding, reshaping, merging. Every event is happening now, somewhere in the infinite simultaneity of existence. The mirror does not distinguish between what was and what is, it simply reflects. You breathe, and in that breath you sense the truth that all time coexists. The universe does not forget. Every motion leaves a trace. Every trace remains part of the whole. The comet drifts onward, unhurried, unchanged, luminous in its quiet defiance of urgency. You feel a peace unlike any other, the peace of recognizing that nothing is lost, only transformed. The stars ahead blur softly, their light folding into one another, like pages turning in a vast, invisible book. You are reading it without words, only through feeling. Every line you understand becomes part of you. Every mystery deepens your calm. The comet's glow fades slightly, but the reflection it left within you grows brighter. You realize that to look into the universe is to look into yourself. Both are made of memory, motion, and light. The visitor from nowhere has become your teacher, showing you that time's mirror is endless and forgiving. There is no beginning or end in the cosmic reflection, only different views of the same eternal dance. And as you watch, the mirror begins to ripple. The reflected stars distort, bending into spirals and waves. You sense a new idea stirring, that beneath the beauty of order lies another kind of truth. one not bound by symmetry or predictability. A whisper rises from the depths of that shifting glass, asking you gently, what if chaos, too, is part of the pattern? The mirror of time shimmers, then fractures, not violently but beautifully. The reflections ripple outward like waves on a cosmic pond, bending light into unpredictable patterns. You find yourself surrounded by motion that defies symmetry. Dust swirls, particles dance, and the path of the comet bends subtly under invisible forces. At first, it feels like disorder, as though something precious has come undone. But then you notice how every fragment finds its rhythm, every curve finds its reason. Chaos, you realize, is not an accident. It is the pulse of creation itself. 3A/ATLAS does not follow a path written by human equations. Its orbit is uncertain, its origins unknown. To astronomers, that uncertainty is a challenge. To you, it becomes an invitation. You let go of trying to predict where it will go. Instead, you watch, patiently, as the universe writes freely across the blackboard of space. Patterns emerge and dissolve like thought itself moving through the mind of existence. A sudden glint of light from the comet's tail draws your eye. The dust swirls in turbulent spirals, like storm clouds on Jupiter or eddies in a river. You remember how, on Earth, chaos takes form in other places, in weather, in the branching of lightning, in the curl of smoke rising from fire. Each is unique, unrepeatable, but never meaningless. There is elegance in that unpredictability, a structure that only appears when you step back far enough to see the whole. In that realization, something loosens inside you. The need for certainty, the longing for fixed order, both dissolve into wonder. Perhaps the universe was never meant to be a perfect machine. Perhaps it is a living poem, written in turbulence, read through change. Chaos is not rebellion against order. It is its renewal. Without it, the cosmos would be static, lifeless, still. Through chaos, stars ignite, galaxies form, life breathes. You drift beside the comet, watching as small fragments break from its body, scattering like seeds. Gravity reshapes their paths into elegant arcs, subtle interactions unfolding across millions of kilometers. None of it is random, yet none of it could have been predicted. Each grain becomes a whisper of possibility, a reminder that creation thrives in unpredictability. Your thoughts wander back to the mirror of time. You remember how it showed reflections of what once was. Now you see that even the mirror cannot stay still. It ripples again, its surface alive with potential. The universe is not a gallery of frozen moments. It is a canvas that never dries. Every vibration, every motion, every fluctuation adds color to the infinite painting. Chaos becomes language, and you begin to read it. You see how it shaped your own world. The swirling clouds that gathered into oceans, the molecular accidents that birthed life, the storms that carved valleys and shaped mountains. Even your heartbeat, your breath, your thoughts, all are rhythms of chaos organized by unseen harmony. It is as though the cosmos has always been improvising, playing its song without rehearsal, yet always in tune with itself. 3I/ATLAS continues to drift, crossing planes of gravity where planetary orbits tug gently on its motion. The pull of Jupiter, the whisper of solar wind, the resistance of light itself, all weave together into an unpredictable ballet. The comet does not fight this uncertainty. It moves with grace through the pull and release, trusting the unseen geometry of space. You feel yourself doing the same. You breathe slower, deeper. The chaos within you, your thoughts, your emotions, your memories, no longer seem like noise. They are the signs of life, the proof of motion. If you were perfectly still, perfectly ordered, you would not exist at all. Even the atoms in your blood vibrate with a kind of wildness. The universe lives through your fluctuations. For a moment, you imagine zooming out, seeing galaxies collide and merge, stars ignite and fade, black holes distort time itself. All of it appears chaotic, yet from a distance it resembles a heartbeat, a breathing cosmos in continuous evolution. The universe does not seek control, it seeks expression, and chaos is the brush it paints with. You remember how mathematicians discovered fractals, infinite patterns hidden within apparent disorder. Coastlines, snowflakes, clouds, and all complex, unpredictable, yet following subtle rules that repeat on every scale. The same could be true for you, for thought, for destiny. What appears uncertain is often the universe exploring itself in new directions. As 3I/A TLAS glides past the orbit of Mars, sunlight glints on the fine particles streaming from its surface. The light refracts through them, scattering into colours faint but infinite. It looks like a storm of prisms, a rainbow born from entropy. The beauty is not in control, it's in surrender. You realise then, chaos is the art of letting go. The visitor from beyond has become a teacher once more. Its unpredictable dance through the solar system reminds you that perfection is not stillness. It is movement that accepts its own mystery. You feel gratitude for the uncertainty, for the countless unknowns that keep existence alive. The comet drifts onward, its path shifting minutely with each encounter of light and gravity. Behind it, the trail glows, a tapestry woven from turbulence, unpredictability, and light. You watch until it fades into the dark, and the silence that follows feels full, not empty. You wonder, quietly, if each speck of dust it leaves behind carries more than memory. If within those motes of matter, the story of chaos continues to unfold. Perhaps even dust has its echo, a trace of connection between all that has ever moved and all that will ever be. You look into the vastness, waiting for the next whisper from the cosmos, and in that stillness you begin to feel the faint shimmer of interstellar dust. The light of the sun drapes across space like silk, and in it dust becomes visible. 1 billion tiny mirrors drift behind the comet, glinting for a heartbeat before vanishing again into darkness. These are not mere particles, they are archives. You drift closer, and every grain seems to hum softly with memory, as if the universe had left its fingerprints upon them. You imagine each mote as a page torn from an ancient cosmic book, written not in ink, but in starlight and silence. 3 I/ATLAS glides onward, shedding fragments of its surface into a trail of glittering debris. The dust stretches for millions of kilometers, following its maker like a thought that refuses to fade. Each grain is a traveler in its own right, wandering through sunlight and shadow, carrying the chemistry of another world. Carbon, silicates, frozen gases, relics of birthplaces far beyond the solar system. You realize you are watching a message from another star system dissolve through your sky. Astronomers call it interstellar dust, but to you it feels like the breath of creation. These motes are not lifeless. They are the building blocks of everything that will ever live. You remember that your bones, your seeing, your breath, all are formed from elements once carried by dust like this. Every atom within you has drifted through space, collided, transformed, and been reborn countless times. You're not merely watching dust, you are recognizing yourself. As sunlight warms the trail, it comes alive. The particles scatter photons like tiny prisms, sending faint rainbows spiraling through the dark. You imagine them singing, a slow, patient hymn of light, vibrating with the frequencies of their origins. Some were born in the hearts of massive stars, forged in supernova fire, then cast into the cold where new systems form. The journey from there to here took millions of years, yet it arrives now within your sight, your breath, your understanding. You reach out in your mind, trying to touch one. Tumbles through space, not randomly, but with exquisite grace, caught between gravity and radiation. Every push and pull becomes a kind of language, a whisper of physics older than galaxies. You sense how fragile yet eternal this balance is. In a universe so vast, these particles carry continuity. They outlast stars, outlive planets, and drift through epochs like travelers who never tire. The echo of interstellar dust is not loud. It does not roar or shine like the birth of suns. It hums beneath everything, in the background radiation of the cosmos, in the faint warmth between stars, in the atoms that build every thought you've ever had. You feel its presence in your chest, where your heart beats in quiet rhythm with the stars. The dust is within you. You are within it. Boundaries blur until all that exists feels like one slow breath. You recall how astronomers study light scattered by dust to learn its secrets, how they read spectra like poems of chemical memory. Each absorption line is a syllable, each emission peak, a note, They listen not with ears, but with patience. You imagine them peering through telescopes, tracing the faint halo trailing behind 3 I/ATLAS, deciphering the chemistry of another world. It feels almost intimate, as if they're learning not just where it came from, but what it remembers. There is something deeply human in this act, to gather fragments of dust and listen for meaning, to believe that the smallest things might carry the biggest truths. You think of how ancient people once collected ashes, sand, pollen, any trace of the divine left on Earth, and now humanity reaches beyond its sky, sifting cosmic dust for the same purpose, to understand its origin, to remember its story. The comet continues its voyage, its long, luminous tail stretching into the void like a fading trail of thought. The farther it travels, the more diffuse the dust becomes, dispersing into interplanetary space. But dispersion is not loss, it is transformation. These particles will drift for centuries caught in gravitational eddies, joining the grand migration of interstellar material that never ends. One day, perhaps, they will fall into another cloud of gas, seeding new worlds. You find comfort in that thought that nothing is ever truly gone, even when light fades, even when orbits end, the smallest remnants remain, ready to become something else. Dust becomes rock, rock becomes planet, planet becomes life. Life returns to dust again. The cycle is not circular but infinite, spiraling outward through time and change. You are not apart from it. You are one of its countless expressions. As you watch, a soft wave of solar wind brushes through the trail, scattering the dust farther into the dark. The movement looks random, but you know it isn't. Every motion is governed by unseen laws, electromagnetic forces, radiation pressure, gravity's faint pull. What appears to drift aimlessly is actually writing its own verse in the poem of motion. The echo continues, faint but eternal, reverberating through emptiness that is never truly empty. You close your eyes and imagine listening deeper. Beyond the hum of the solar wind, beyond the quiet crackle of distant particles, there is a soundless rhythm, the heartbeat of entropy, the murmur of energy exchanging form. The dust is not just echoing where it came from, it is also whispering where it will go. You begin to sense a vast memory unspooling, and not of one comet, but of every world that has ever existed. Somewhere in that awareness, time feels less like a river and more like an atmosphere. Past, present, and future mingle, carried by the same invisible currents. The dust before you might one day become the soil of another planet, the surface of another being's skin, or the air another traveler will breathe. You are witnessing continuity across eternity. The comet drifts farther now, and the dust fades from your sight. Yet you still see it, not with your eyes, but with something quieter. The echo remains, vibrating through your sense of wonder. It is the sound of connection, the proof that nothing is ever alone. And as the faint shimmer of dust dissolves into space, you feel that same shimmer within yourself. A quiet awareness that somewhere, something vast is watching back, ready to awaken into light once more. You open your eyes and the universe looks back, not through mirrors or instruments, but through awareness itself, the quiet act of noticing. Somewhere within the deep fabric of space, a comet burns faintly, its light crossing millions of kilometers to reach you. When you see it, something extraordinary happens. The observer and the observed become one. You are not outside the event, you are within it. You are part of the equation that allows it to exist. Physicists call this the observer effect, the idea that by measuring, by perceiving, you change what is being measured. In the microscopic world of quantum mechanics, particles do not have definite positions until they are observed. They drift in superposed possibility, waves of potential waiting for awareness to touch them. When you watch, the wave collapses. When you look away, it blooms again into uncertainty. You realize that observation is not passive. It is creative. As 3/ATLAS glides through the solar system, telescopes gather its light. Sensors, lenses, mirrors, and data streams, all tools designed to extend the reach of human sight. But behind every image, there is still a human mind interpreting what it means. When you observe the comet, you are not only seeing reflected sunlight and dust, you are weaving meaning into photons. You transform energy into thought, and perhaps in doing so the universe experiences itself in a new way. You imagine consciousness as a mirror placed gently within the cosmos. It does not distort what it reflects, it simply allows reflection to occur. Without the mirror, there would still be movement, gravity, chemistry, but no recognition. The dance would happen in silence, unseen, but with awareness, the performance becomes visible. And in that seeing, something changes. You begin to understand that your attention is not separate from the universe. It is one of its instruments. There's a quiet intimacy in this realization. When you study a comet, the light you see has traveled across time, carrying the memory of where it has been. But in the same moment, the comet is part of your memory, shaping your neural patterns, altering the chemistry of your brain. The act of perception becomes a bridge between outer and inner cosmos. The vast and the personal meet in a single instant of awareness, as if the stars and your thoughts shared the same pulse. You breathe slowly and wonder what consciousness truly is. Is it a byproduct of matter, an emergent property of complex systems? Or is it something woven into the foundation of reality itself, the ability of the universe to know it exists? You recall the physicist John Wheeler's poetic phrase, "The universe is a participatory one." Reality unfolds through interaction, through observation, through dialogue between energy and awareness. Without the act of seeing, perhaps there is no scene. The comet moves silently, yet in your mind it stirs ideas, feelings, connections. It becomes more than a rock or a frozen traveller. It becomes a story. The universe, through you, tells itself what it is. This realization softens you. You are not a distant spectator of cosmic events. You are the space through which those events become meaningful. You are the awareness through which the universe becomes self-aware. You recall looking at your own reflection as a child, the first time you realized that the person in the mirror was you. That spark of recognition was a small echo of what the cosmos experiences through your gaze now. For billions of years, it existed without eyes to see, without consciousness to marvel at its structure. Then slowly, matter learned to look back. Through evolution, the universe shaped instruments of perception, creatures who could observe, feel, and wonder. You touch your wrist, feeling the faint rhythm of your pulse. It is a quiet beat synchronized with the laws of thermodynamics, the flow of energy, the chemistry of life. You are not apart from these laws, you are their expression. The same forces that shape galaxies shape your heartbeat. The same photons that leave a star eventually spark vision within your eyes. The connection is not metaphorical, it is literal, physical, continuous. Somewhere in the dark, a photon reflected from the comet enters the lens of a telescope. Inside, it strikes a sensor, generating a tiny electric signal. That signal becomes data, the data becomes an image, and that image becomes knowledge, a thought within a human mind. The photon's long journey ends not in soreness, but in awareness. The universe, once again, has completed a loop, from creation, through motion, into consciousness. You think of all the astronomers staring through screens and glass, recording the path of 3I/ATLAS. Each of them carries a fragment of awareness, a unique reflection of the same vast mystery. Their collective gaze forms a network of knowing, humanity's shared consciousness expanding into the stars. The universe is not just watching itself through one set of eyes, but through millions, each adding nuance, colour and depth to the grand picture. As you sit in quiet thought, it becomes clear that perception is not only seeing, it is participation. When you look at the night sky, you give the universe a way to feel its own beauty. When you learn, question or dream, you give it new pathways to understand itself. You're not small for being human. You are vast because you contain reflection. The cosmos has found, within you, a way to admire its own existence. The comet continues onward, disappearing gradually into the outer darkness. Yet you know that even as it fades, the act of seeing it has already changed everything. Your awareness has added something to the total sum of what is, not energy or mass, but meaning. And perhaps meaning too is a kind of force, subtle, immeasurable, but real, a bridge between thought and matter, between knowing and being. You close your eyes, and in the darkness behind them, you sense the universe still shimmering. It is not gone. It is within you, in memory, in physics, in consciousness. The vast and the intimate have merged completely. There is no line separating the observer from the observed anymore. And as your thoughts drift into stillness, one question remains, quiet as a breath. If the universe is watching itself through you, then who or what might it be dreaming through next? For a long moment, the solar system seemed to breathe in silence. The comet had passed its closest approach, yet in the wake of its shimmering trail, the delicate web of gravity rippled faintly, like the surface of a pond disturbed by a falling petal. Astronomers watched with awe as faint perturbations spread across the orbits of dust, asteroids, and even the faint arcs of outer planets. It was almost imperceptible, a few millimeters of deviation in the path of something billions of kilometers away, but in that tremor lay the poetry of celestial mechanics. When equilibrium trembles, the universe reveals its most fragile truth. Stability is not stillness. It is motion perfectly balanced upon motion, forces woven into a living harmony that forever strains against collapse. You look at the simulation glowing before you, an elegant dance of orbits spiraling in time. The sun pulses softly at the center, its gravity the conductor's hand. Each planet moves with exquisite precision, yet one slight shift, one miscalculated tug, and the rhythm changes. In the simulation, Jupiter's gravitational field stretches faintly toward the path of 3I/ATLAS. Its immense mass bends the comet's trajectory by an invisible degree, nudging particles of dust into new lanes of light. A cluster of icy fragments scatters outward, their orbits intersecting faintly with Mars's domain. Nothing collides, but something stirs, a whisper through the cosmic web that equilibrium is alive, aware of every disturbance. You watch the numbers flicker, orbital eccentricities, inclination angles, minute shifts in mean motion. To most, they would seem abstract, cold, sterile, but to you, they pulse with emotion, as though the universe itself were holding its breath, unsure of how to settle again. For a fleeting moment, it feels as if the solar system might unravel, not violently but gracefully, its delicate music slipping slightly out of tune. The thought fills you not with fear but with wonder. How fragile must perfection be to survive so many tremors? The balance between order and chaos is not a war, but a conversation. Every planet, every comet, every grain of dust speaks the same quiet language of force and counterforce. Each motion is an act of faith that gravity will remember its promise. You imagine standing somewhere beyond Neptune, looking inward at the sun and all its children. From that distance, the entire family of worlds would seem to shimmer, their paths tracing endless ribbons of silver light. The trembling equilibrium you see now, these faint mathematical deviations, would appear like the soft flutter of wind across the face of eternity. It is beautiful precisely because it is temporary. In your mind, you feel the physics turn into feeling. The equations cease to be numbers and become breaths. The planets breathe, the sun exhales heat, the comet inhales light. You realize that even instability has rhythm, that the trembling of a system is not its weakness, but its reminder of being alive. The solar system is not a clockwork machine. It is a breathing cosmos, and every heartbeat counts. A sudden thought arises. Could this slight imbalance, this near imperceptible shift, echo far into the future? You imagine eons passing. The dust from 3I/ATLAS scattered now across the inner system might one day fall toward Earth as a faint meteor shower. 1,000 years from now, someone might look up and make a wish on a streak of light born from this tremor. A tiny, almost forgotten event rippling through time, finding meaning in the gaze of a human child. Equilibrium may tremble, but it always finds new balance through connection. Back in the simulation, the ripples subside. Jupiter's vast influence stabilizes again, the comet drifts onward, and the solar system returns to its measured cadence. The data curves flatten, the lines of orbit settle back into their elegant ellipses. Yet you can still sense it, that quiet aftershock, the faint echo of motion rediscovering peace. The universe, it seems, always needs a pause between breaths. You take a deep breath yourself, mirroring the cosmos. The symmetry comforts you, your lungs expanding like an orbit reaching a feline, contracting like a return toward the center. You feel that you too are made of these same forces, tension and release, pull and surrender. When your own balance trembles, the universe understands. You're not separate from it, You're one of its countless oscillations seeking rhythm in the chaos. Your mind drifts back to the comet, now a fading glimmer on the edge of sunlight. It has stirred the solar system, touched invisible strings of gravity, and moved on, but its passage lingers in the unseen mathematics of time. You wonder, does the universe feel when something moves through it? Does it notice when equilibrium trembles, not as loss, but as transformation? You close your eyes and imagine the entire system once more. The sun glows like a steady heart. The planets spin in their luminous orbits, fragile but faithful. Somewhere between the hum of stars and the silence of space, balance holds, trembling softly yet unbroken. It is in that trembling that beauty resides, that creation endures, that change becomes the very essence of order. When equilibrium trembles, the cosmos does not fall apart. It breathes, it adjusts, it listens to itself and remembers what it means to be whole. You realize then that harmony is not the absence of disturbance. It is the gentle art of returning again and again to center. And as you watch the final frame of the simulation fade to black, you feel it too, the quiet quiver of your own heart, keeping time with the solar system's slow recovery. The universe sways, and so do you. Both seeking the same thing, stillness not in silence, but in balance that dares to move. You smile softly, the trembling ends, the next breath begins. The comet drifts away now, a pale fragment of ice and memory receding into the quiet dark. Its luminous trail fades across the solar system like a soft whisper, returning to sense. For weeks, telescopes trace the last glimmers of its dust as sunlight refracts through the fading particles. Slowly the brightness dims, and the great event that stirred the planets gives way to calm. The solar system exhales. In the stillness that follows, you sense something delicate, like the pause between two heartbeats. The orbits settle. The gravitational murmurs smooth themselves into quiet lines of motion. The same planets continue their endless revolutions, Jupiter keeping its stately distance, Earth glowing blue with fragile life, Mars watching from afar. Yet everything feels slightly changed, as though the memory of motion has imprinted itself upon the very geometry of space. You look again at the data, now steady and serene. The comet's influence has faded from the equations. The vectors that once quivered with energy return to perfect symmetry. Stillness does not mean nothingness, it is structure restored. The solar system, after its brief encounter with chaos, has found its rhythm again. But as you sit before the glowing map of orbits, you realize that equilibrium never returns exactly as it was. The paths are the same, but the awareness is different. The comet may have moved on, but the memory of its passage remains, encoded in dust, in faint chemical trails, in the quiet imagination of those who watched it pass. You feel that same memory moving through you, a reminder that motion always leaves a trace. Outside your observatory window, dawn begins to lighten the sky. The first rays of sunlight fall across the telescope's glass. You close your eyes, and for a moment, the rising warmth feels like an echo of the comet's tail, a line of light drawn across your thoughts. You imagine the solar system itself waking, stretching into its new equilibrium, aware of its own fragility and grace. The planets move as they always have, yet there's a sense of gratitude in their orbits now, as if even gravity understands what it means to return from a tremor. The stillness feels earned, not given. You wonder if the same is true for life, for hearts and systems, for people and planets alike. The most profound calm often comes after disruption, not before. A storm clears, and in its aftermath still stillness arrives as a revelation. It is quieter because you have learned to listen differently. In your mind's eye, you follow 3I/ATLAS as it fades beyond the orbit of Neptune. Its icy fragments drift into darkness, reflecting faint sunlight that will take hours to reach the edge of the system. Eventually, even that light will dim. The comet will return to silence, circling perhaps for millions of years, forgotten by all but the quiet fabric of gravity that holds its path. Stillness, you realize, is not the opposite of movement. It is the return after motion, the steadying of rhythm after song. It is the silence that still carries the memory of sound. The solar system moves in this truth. Every orbit, every revolution is a cycle of disturbance and return. You recall how it began, a sudden brightness, a burst of curiosity, humanity's instruments turning upward in awe. And now, as the data quiets, humanity too grows still. The same observers who once traced its light now look upon empty coordinates, knowing that what was seen can never be unseen. The comet's passage became part of human time. A soft wind moves through the open dome. You breathe it in, and the scent of metal and morning air fills your lungs. You feel that the stillness outside is also within you. The motion of your own heartbeat, the rhythm of breath, mirrors the orbit of the worlds. Motion and rest, pull and release. Somewhere beyond the sun, the faint wake of the comet still drifts, like a sigh exhaled by the universe. And though it has left, its essence lingers in the way light bends, in the paths that realigned after its touch. Even now, as all returns to order, something within you resists full calm. There is a quiet ache, not of loss, but of transformation. The solar system, for all its vastness, has been touched by a traveller that came and went, and you too have been moved by its passing. The stillness you feel now is not emptiness. It is reflection, the calm after understanding. The equations fade from your screen. You let them go, closing the simulation for the first time in months. The numbers will remain, but what matters now cannot be measured. You realize that knowledge itself follows the same pattern as the cosmos. Disturbance brings insight, and insight brings peace. You step outside. The horizon glows softly in gold and rose. Above it, Venus gleams, a final reminder that beauty survives even after movement ends. The sky is perfectly still, yet alive with hidden motion. Photons streaming, planets revolving, the Earth rotating beneath your feet. Stillness, you see, is never absolute. It is motion in perfect balance, a harmony so complete it appears silent. You watch the sunrise and think of how the comet once reflected this same light, sunlight scattered across the ice billions of years old. That light now touches your face. In this small symmetry, you feel a truth too vast for words. The universe always returns to stillness, but never to the same stillness twice. The comet is gone, yet the space it passed through remains subtly changed. The solar system continues its endless song, and you, standing beneath the warming sky, feel your thoughts align with its rhythm, calm, steady, and infinite. The quiet return to stillness is not an ending. It is a promise that after every tremor there will be peace, after every disturbance a breath, after every journey a homecoming. You close your eyes and listen, not for sound, but for silence itself. It hums faintly in every direction, like the echo of creation remembering itself. The solar system turns once more, serene and eternal, and somewhere beyond sight, 3I/TLAS drifts on, carrying the memory of sunlight and your gaze, a silent messenger moving forever toward the quiet beyond all motion. You sit again before the dark screen, and for the first time you see yourself reflected in it. The stars, the equations, the orbits, all are there, but so is your face. The realization comes softly, like the light from a distant dawn. You have been observing not only the cosmos, but yourself within it. Every simulation you've run, every calculation you've made, has carried the quiet fingerprint of your own existence. The comet was a mirror, and so is the data. You begin to see the strange symmetry between human thought and the motion of matter. Your neurons, electric and alive, hum with the same rhythm as orbiting worlds. Each thought is a flicker of energy, a pattern that could, in another form, become a wave of light. The mathematics of consciousness and the mathematics of gravity are not opposites. They are echoes of one another. The more you think, the clearer it becomes. You're made of the same material as the visitor you watched pass through the solar system. Carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, these atoms were forged in the hearts of dying stars, scattered across galaxies, gathered again into dust, air, and water, and finally shaped into thought. You are stardust that learned to dream. You close your eyes and your breath feels cosmic, an inhale and exhale that mirrors the expansion and contraction of the universe itself. When you breathe in, you take in atoms once held in the lungs of ancestors and oceans and stars. When you breathe out, you return them, changed. You are both receiver and contributor to an endless exchange. It strikes you then that science is not cold, it is profoundly intimate. To study the universe is to recognize yourself as part of its unfolding. The human in the equation is not an observer outside the system. You are the equation, a term in the formula that makes existence possible. Every observation, every measurement is also participation. By looking, you change what is seen. You imagine three I/A-T-L-A-S again drifting far beyond Neptune, unseen now but still moving. It carries within it the same atomic heritage as you. Perhaps in another system, another being watches another comet and wonders the same, whether consciousness is the universe's way of seeing itself. The stars are silent, yet full of language. You listen to their quiet, and in it you hear meaning. Gravity pulls on everything, but so does curiosity. Both are invisible forces that draw bodies together, one of matter, one of mind. You begin to understand that your wonder is a kind of gravity too, binding you to the cosmos in unseen ways. The data on your screen becomes poetry. Numbers flow like constellations, and equations curve into beauty. The elliptical paths of planets resemble the cycles of your own emotions, periods of closeness and distance, chaos and calm, falling and returning. You see no division between what is physical and what is felt. The cosmos is not only outside, it's within every pulse, every spark, every dream. You think of the ancient astronomers who once charted the skies with nothing but their eyes. They too were the human in the equation, tiny against the cosmos, yet infinite in curiosity. Their maps were acts of faith, their observations a kind of prayer. You are no different, just more equipped, more precise, but still reaching upward for the same reason, to know what you are part of. Your heartbeat becomes a metronome for the universe's silence. Each beat is time measured not in seconds, but in awareness. You realize that when people speak of understanding the cosmos, what they truly mean is remembering it, recalling the origin written in their atoms, the pulse that has always been there. Even now, as technology extends human sight farther than ever before, the act of seeing remains the same. Light travels, enters an eye, triggers a thought. That moment, when light becomes understanding, is where physics becomes philosophy. You are that point of conversion, that fragile yet miraculous intersection where matter contemplates itself. You look again at the simulation, but this time not as a detached observer. You see yourself as a participant in the dance, one of countless moving parts in the great equilibrium. Your emotions, choices, fears, and hopes ripple through the same laws that govern stars. A decision, a thought, a dream, they are all forms of motion. It's humbling and yet strangely comforting. You are small, yes, but never insignificant. To exist is to be included. Every breath you take contributes to the balance of energy and motion. You are not watching the universe. You are the universe, briefly aware of its own reflection. You wonder what it means for meaning itself. If all things are part of one continuous flow, stars, dust, thought, then meaning is not imposed from outside but arises naturally from participation. The act of caring, of noticing, of loving even a single moment becomes cosmic. Awareness is the light that binds everything. You think again of the comet, how it came uninvited, how it stirred stillness into motion, how it left behind no trace but memory. Perhaps humanity is like that too, a luminous disturbance in the dark, a brief flare of consciousness moving through space-time. Maybe that is all any life ever is, the universe temporarily looking back at itself with curiosity and awe. The room around you fades into quiet, the instruments sleep, the stars beyond the glass continue their slow rotations, you feel your pulse steady, matching their rhythm. The boundary between you and them blurs. What separates thought from motion? What separates observer from observed? The more you look, the more those lines dissolve, and in that dissolution, you feel peace. To be human is not to control the cosmos, but to belong to it, to exist within its law, its order, its beauty. To think is to orbit, to dream is to emit light. You smile, not at discovery, but at recognition. The equations you've studied your whole life have always described you, your body, your breath, your place in time, and now, as you look at the vast, quiet screen, you whisper the truth you've always known but never said aloud. I am part of this. The words dissolve into silence, but the silence feels alive. Somewhere far away, the comet drifts into deeper dark. Somewhere nearby, your heart continues its patient motion, a gravitational rhythm pulling you toward understanding. And as you exhale, you sense the next truth forming in the quiet. That beyond all this awareness lies something deeper still, a stillness beyond even chaos, where peace is not found, but remembered. The thought lingers soft and unfinished as the night folds around you like the curve of an orbit yet to close. You sit in the quiet after all motion has ended. The screens are dark, the instruments idle, and even the soft hum of the observatory has faded. Outside, night leans close against the glass, vast, ancient, endless. Somewhere beyond that blackness, 3I/a drifts into silence. It is no longer near enough to track or measure. Its light, once bright enough to stir headlines and hearts, has dissolved into the cosmic sea. And yet something of it remains within you. A calm realization, deep and slow, that what you witnessed was never truly chaos. Every fragment of its journey, the slingshot around the sun, the shimmering tail, the unpredictable tilt of its path, was part of a larger stillness. The universe does not need to control its motions to maintain order. It allows them, it breathes through them. You recall the word chaos and feel how human it sounds. It carries the tone of fear, of uncertainty, of a mind searching for pattern. But in the wide serenity of space, chaos is gentler, more like the motion of water or the drift of clouds. Disorder here is not disobedience. It is freedom. Every atom, every photon, every whisper of plasma simply moves as it must, and that motion becomes harmony. You close your eyes, and in the dark behind your eyelids, you see the universe without structure. Just energy, flowing and merging, returning and arising. No orbits, no boundaries, no edges. And somehow it feels peaceful, because the stillness you've been searching for does not lie beyond motion. It exists within it, like silence between notes. The memory of 3I/a glows softly in your thoughts. You picture its surface, fractured and cold, covered in dust from stars that no longer shine. That dust has travelled longer than human history, carried through unthinkable distances, shaped by collisions, warmed by light, cooled by darkness. And yet every grain found its place. Every motion, no matter how chaotic, created a pattern in time. You think about your own life, the plans you've made, the mistakes, the moments that seemed random or unfair. They too follow a pattern beyond your understanding. If you could step far enough back, perhaps you'd see them as orbits, weaving into one another with purpose invisible from close by. The comet was your teacher in that way, to move without control, to trust in the physics of becoming. Somewhere deep in your memory, the data from the telescope lingers, numbers and wavelengths that once seemed alive with motion. Now they rest. The data has done its work. It has revealed, illuminated, inspired. And now it becomes part of stillness too, because even knowledge, after being born, must settle into quiet understanding. The scientists who watched with you, the ones who stayed up through long nights under the soft hum of machines, have gone home. Their screens, too, are dark. The comet's name will fade from conversation, replaced by the next discovery, the next flare of light from the unknown. But what it left behind in you, in them, cannot fade. It is a change not of knowledge, but of awareness. You open your hand and imagine holding a grain of cosmic dust. It weighs nothing, but within it lies the story of creation. Hydrogen born in the Big Bang, fused into heavier elements in stars, released through supernovae, drawn again into new systems, new forms. Within that grain are galaxies, histories, possibilities. Within you too are all those same elements, arranged for a brief, miraculous moment into consciousness. You breathe, inhale, exhale, the rhythm feels infinite. You begin to see that every breath is a kind of orbit, expansion and contraction, energy flowing in and out. The lungs are universes of motion. The blood carries its own galaxies of cells. You are not separate from the cosmos. You are a smaller version of it, built from its logic, pulsing with its quiet order. Light from distant stars still falls through space. Some of it will reach Earth long after you are gone, some will never be seen, but whether witnessed or not, it travels carrying the same message. That existence does not depend on being observed. The universe is not waiting to be understood, it simply is doing. You realize then that the stillness beyond chaos is not the end of the story. It is the essence of every story ever told, the pause that allows creation to begin again. The comet fades, but its energy disperses, becoming part of the interstellar medium, the raw material for future worlds. Nothing is lost. Everything changes form. Stillness, you see, is not absence. It is continuation without resistance. You picture the solar system from far away, a delicate arrangement of light and shadow. Planets move in slow arcs. Moons revolve in graceful loops. Dust glimmers like breath caught in sunlight. From that distance, everything seems calm, eternal, balanced. You can't hear the collisions, the storms, the friction. You can only see harmony. And maybe that's the truth of it all. Harmony isn't the absence of turbulence. It's what emerges when turbulence finds its rhythm. You remember the first night you saw the comet, that cold point of light piercing the dark, unexpected and beautiful. You remember the excitement, the headlines, the calculations. Now, all of that feels far away, softened by time. What remains is not the noise of discovery, but the quiet realization that every event, every chaos, leads to stillness. That stillness, in turn, prepares for the next movement. Your thoughts grow slower. The universe feels close, not vast. Its substance doesn't feel empty, but full, as though every atom hums with memory. Somewhere in that distance, 3I/ATLAS continues its journey into interstellar space, carrying dust, light, and the soft echo of everything it touched. It is no longer part of your solar system, but it will always be part of your understanding. You exhale once more, deeply. The air moves out like a tide returning to the sea. In that moment, you feel aligned with something infinite, the pulse of expansion and return, of creation and rest. You realize that chaos, order, light, and dark are not opposites. They are movements of the same eternal breath. The universe inhales, forming stars, galaxies, life. The universe exhales, letting go, returning energy to the void. Between each breath lies peace, and in that peace you rest. You close your eyes, knowing now that stillness is not the absence of sound or motion. It is the deep, quiet rhythm that holds all things together. The instruments remain silent. The stars outside drift in their patient arcs. The universe hums, soft and eternal, like the memory of a lullaby. And as you drift into sleep, the final thought comes, not as a question, but as an understanding. You are the stillness beyond chaos.